My name is Alex. I have a wife named Emily, whom I married about a year ago. Emily and I were classmates in middle school, but we didn't really interact much back then. However, we reconnected at a high school reunion and got closer after coincidentally sitting next to each other, which led to us dating. Emily, with her modest and kind personality, is not much of a talker, but she always listens to my stories with a smile. The time I spend with Emily is always warm and peaceful, and thinking about our future together felt like a natural progression. We get married in our 4th year of dating, when we were both 24 years old. And even after getting married, our tranquil happiness continued, and we recently celebrated our 1st anniversary. I'm a typical office worker, and Emily works as a nurse. On a Friday night after work, we met at the restaurant where I proposed to her. Sorry, I'm a bit late because I changed my clothes at the department store's restroom. About 10 minutes past our meeting time, Emily showed up wearing a beige dress. She probably changed her clothes after leaving work, considering she usually goes to work in casual attire. It's all right, shall we go in? I always love seeing Emily in her daily life, but being with her dressed up for a special occasion like this, after a while, makes me feel a bit nervous and excited. The food and drinks were just as delicious as they were a year ago, and our conversation felt even more enjoyable than usual. I was so happy to be celebrating our 1st anniversary together, and to show my feelings, I gave her a modest bouquet of flowers. It was a bouquet full of baby's breath, which Emily likes. I'm not usually the romantic type, but I decided to try giving an anniversary bouquet, inspired by a celebrity couple who mentioned it as their secret to a happy marriage. I was embarrassed, but seeing Emily's happy face made it all worth it. Here's to many more years together, we said to each other, laughing, and with that, our anniversary dinner came to an end. Filled with immense happiness, I felt that together with Emily, we could overcome any challenges that might come our way, even as our family grows. But it seemed like a major test for us arrived sooner than I had expected. About a month after our 1st wedding anniversary. I work in sales, and around 3 p.m., I finished my last meeting for the day. After checking with my boss, I was told I could head straight home. I was excited to get home early since Emily also had the day off, so I drove back quickly. I thought about texting Emily while waiting at a red light, but I wanted to surprise her. So I decided against it and instead bought 2 of her favorite cream puffs at a convenience store on my way home, just as I was about 10 minutes away from home, near an intersection. I saw a familiar face right next to a stopped signal. It was Emily. Since she was off, I wondered if she had gone out to eat with friends. But as I watched, to my surprise, there was a man of similar age beside her, and they looked happy, holding hands. I couldn't believe what I was seeing and rubbed my eyes, looking over and over again, but it was unmistakably Emily's face. I was curious about what was happening, but the light for my lane turned green, and cars behind me started honking, so I had to keep driving. I told myself that Emily couldn't possibly be having an affair and focused on my driving. But I was certain I saw Emily walking hand in hand with another man. My thoughts were all over the place, and I ended up parking in a nearby large Parks parking lot, spending some time alone to think. But no matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't come to a clear conclusion. Eventually, I decided to go home and observe Emily's reaction. When I got home around the usual time, Emily greeted me with her usual smile, saying, "Hi, how was your day today?" Yeah, it was fine." Her usual demeanor caught me off guard. Was she not feeling any guilt? Or could she act this way because there was nothing to feel guilty about? But they were holding hands, and there's hardly any innocent reason for 2 adults to do that. The more I watched Emily behaving naturally, the more confused I became. Today, we're having an asparagus party, and as Grandma sent her a lot of asparagus, so she shared some with us. Emily said cheerfully, heading towards the kitchen. Anna is Emily's best friend from middle school, and I know her from our club activities back then. Oh, really? I couldn't quite focus on the conversation and gave a lackluster response, to which Emily looked at me curiously and asked, "Aren't you happy? You love asparagus, right?" "Yes, I am. I need to thank Anna," I replied hastily. Had she really met Anna after being with that man? But there was indeed a lot of asparagus. Had I misinterpreted the situation? Or was she meticulously preparing this to deceive me? Doubting Emily as she cheerfully prepared dinner pained my heart. I still wanted to believe in her, I think. In the end, we had dinner as usual and spent the day like any other. She was really happy about the cream puffs, and she seemed like the Emily I always knew. The next day, after leaving for work, I texted to Anna to ask about the asparagus. "Did you really meet Emily yesterday and give her asparagus? This approach should not raise any suspicion." Soon after, I got a reply from Anna saying, "Yes, I did. Emily was so happy and grateful because you love asparagus. So, Emily wasn't lying after all." I couldn't believe that Anna, known for her strong sense of justice, would help cover up Emily's affair. I tried not to think too much about it, wondering if I had just misinterpreted what I saw. As I did, life seemed to return to its usual, calm routine with Emily. Just when I started to forget my suspicions and thought our peaceful days were back, I saw something I shouldn't have. It was a beautiful day, so during my lunch break, I decided to eat in the park while on my outside sales rounds. I often come to this park and usually sit on a bench in front of the fountain, but when I got there, I noticed a couple sitting there. So, I sat on a bench in the shade, at a distance where I could still see the fountain. While eating the lunch Emily prepared for me, I thought about how nice it would be to have a picnic with her in the park. As I was looking at the couple on the bench in front of the fountain, something unbelievable caught my eye. Emily. I was so shocked that I couldn't help but utter her name. Yes. There she was, sitting cozily, with a man I didn't know. Emily was smiling her usual happy smile at this stranger. I couldn't believe it, but I knew it was definitely Emily. There was no mistaking it. While I was still in shock, the two of them stood up and walked away, hand in hand. Was she so into this guy that she didn't even notice me sitting nearby? If she had a change of heart, I wished she would just tell me honestly, but it hurt to see her trying to please both of us. Later, after somehow finishing work, I went home at the usual time. Emily was there, seemingly just back herself, saying, "Hi, I just got home too, so I'll hurry up and make dinner." How could she act so normally? Was she deceiving me for a long time, and lying had become second nature to her? "Where have you been?" I asked. At work, you know," she replied. Emily is a nurse at a clinic, and she's usually at work on weekdays. I knew that, but I saw her in the park with a man during the day. It seemed like Emily had no intention of telling the truth. She was determined to deceive me to the end. I finally had enough and said, "You don't have to lie anymore." Emily looked genuinely puzzled and asked, What are you talking about?" I couldn't play along with her act anymore. I took out what I had prepared and said, "I can't trust you anymore. Please leave." In my hand there was a divorce oath. What do you mean you can't trust me?" Emily asked, her face looking like she was about to cry, clearly confused. It's amazing how she could produce tears even though she didn't seem sad. I fought this while feeling unable to explain everything from my own mouth. "Maybe you should think it over. I won't be coming home tonight." With those words, I left the house. Just a short while ago, we had celebrated our first year together, looking forward to our future. I never imagined such a future would come. Filled with despair, I spent that night at a nearby business hotel and went straight to work the next day. There was no contact from Emily during that time, but around the time I finished work, I received a text from her. "I've thought about it, but I can't find anything that would have upset you so much. I'm sorry if I unconsciously made you feel bad. I want to be with you, Alex, and I'm willing to work for it. So, I want to talk face to face again. Please contact me whenever you're ready. I'm really sorry." The text was very much like Emily, sincere and heartfelt. If only it weren't for the fact of her infidelity. After such a betrayal, still lying like this, I just couldn't understand her intentions. If she's so happy with that man, she'd be better off without me. But then, I thought, maybe it's not right to keep running away without having a proper conversation, even if we were supposed to be a couple who could talk about anything. With a bit more calmness, I started to think that way. What I saw and felt. Maybe if I tell everything, Emily might be honest with me too. But, given the fact that there was an affair, I can't imagine living like before. Thinking that, I just replied, "Understood. I'll come home tomorrow." Then Emily texted back, "Thank you," and I stayed at the business hotel I had reserved for that night. The next day, since I had a discussion with Emily after work, I was a bit nervous while working. Again, I had a business meeting near the park, so out of habit, I went there. After arriving, I thought that I should have avoided this place since it brought back bad memories, but since I had already parked, I decided to quickly eat and head back, so I walked to my usual bench. As I was heading to my usual bench with my lunch bag from the convenience store, what do you know, there was another couple sitting there. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt like I was going to stop breathing. I walked past a couple, trying to calm my racing heart, and sat down on the bench I had used the other day. Then, nervously, I glanced at the couple's faces, and sure enough, it was Emily. My mind went blank. After being confronted with divorce by me, tearing up, saying she couldn't believe it, apologizing, and agreeing to talk today, there she was, happily having an affair in the midst of all this. I couldn't understand what Emily was thinking at all. Sadness, anger, a variety of emotions surged, but I was also possibly feeling fear due to not understanding her actions. Then, today, the man left the bench first, leaving Emily alone. Unable to hold back anymore, I stood up and walked towards Emily. I grabbed her arm and said, "What are you thinking?" Then she replied, "What do you mean?" using polite language and a puzzled expression. Was she mocking me? I couldn't understand. "What do you mean?" But as I said that, I noticed something felt off. Somehow, she seemed like a complete stranger. Indeed, she looked like Emily, but something was different. "Are you not Emily?" When I said that, the woman looked a bit surprised and then said, "No, I'm not." That could have been interpreted as a clumsy lie by Emily to get out of the situation, but her words became more credible when I realized that her demeanor was completely different from Emily's. Also, upon closer inspection, there were moles under her eyes and on her chin that Emily didn't have. I'm sorry. Was this woman, who I recently saw as Emily, actually her all this time? Or was it just today? My mind was in turmoil, but the fact that I had mistaken a stranger for Emily and confronted her was clear. Moreover, grabbing a stranger's arm and confronting her harshly, I could have been reported to the police. It was a mistake. I'm really sorry. As I deeply apologized, the woman made a surprising statement. By any chance, do you know someone who looks a lot like me?" I immediately looked up upon hearing her words. Oh yes, my wife looks a lot like you, and that's why I mistook you for her." Then, she shared a surprising story. Her name is apparently Jennifer. She's the same age as Emily and me, and works as an office lady near this park. Jennifer mentioned that her fiancé, the man who was with her just now, working nearby, so they often meet like this during lunch breaks. The person I saw in this park the other day was indeed Jennifer. And she also told me that the woman I saw months ago at the crossroads, considering the circumstances, was likely her. Hearing all this, I felt tremendous regret. I had mistaken a look-alike stranger for my wife Emily, jumped to conclusions about an affair without proper discussion, and rashly pushed for a divorce. The one who needs to apologize is me, but Emily's wounded heart might not easily heal. What have I done? I lamented, forgetting Jennifer was there, and held my head in my hands. Then Jennifer said, "There's something else I haven't told you." What would that be? In my distracted state, I asked her. "I have a twin sister who I've been separated from since birth," Jennifer said. I was surprised again and asked her what she meant. "I was born a twin, but I hardly remember anything since my parents divorced when I was 4 years old. They never met again due to complications in their relationship, and it was forbidden for us to meet. I've lived all this time without even knowing if my sister was alive, but I never forgot about her. I've always wanted to meet Emily again." Jennifer said this with tears in her eyes, and it didn't seem like she was lying. So, Emily, my wife, is Jennifer's sister. But I had never heard Emily talk about having a twin. "That's why, if your wife is my sister Emily, it's understandable that you mistook me for her. We really do look alike." Hearing this made me feel a little relieved. Although it doesn't change the fact that I hurt Emily by jumping to conclusions about her being a twin. While we were talking, it was time for both of us to return to work, so we exchanged contact information and parted ways for the day. I didn't know if Emily would forgive me, but I decided to apologize to her first and then talk about Jennifer, so I went home. When I got home, I saw Emily with a worried expression. Seeing her face made my heart tighten, and I immediately apologized. "Emily, I was wrong. I'm truly sorry." Emily was surprised as I suddenly apologized deeply. Then, I told her everything, including my suspicions of infidelity and meeting Jennifer. After hearing everything, Emily looked confused but first said, "Thank you for telling me. You don't need to apologize, Alex. It's my fault for not telling you about having a twin sister. I'm really sorry for troubling you." No, Emily, you don't need to apologize. I'm the one who jumped to conclusions. I'm truly sorry. Emily and I apologized to each other for a while and finally managed to share our misaligned thoughts. And for the first time in a long while, we were able to laugh together from the heart. Later, Emily also told me about her past. It was exactly the same as what Jennifer had told me, and it became clear that they were twin sisters. Emily hadn't told me about it not because she was hiding it, but because she was raised by her mother saying, "Think of your twin sister as if she no longer exists." I have met Emily's mother and know she's a wonderful person. It's hard to imagine such a kind mother-in-law saying those words to Emily, as if she wanted to erase a part of her past. But perhaps that just shows how strained the relationship between Emily's parents had become. However, like Jennifer, Emily had never forgotten her twin sister and had always wanted to meet her. While she told me this, she was in tears. Seeing her like this, I couldn't just stand by, so I suggested that we tell her mother and arrange a meeting with Jennifer. At first, Emily hesitated, but then she seemed to decide to follow her true feelings. Later, with her mother's consent, we arranged for Emily to meet Jennifer. Emily and I arrived at the park, where we had agreed to meet. Much earlier than the scheduled time, but Jennifer also arrived 10 minutes before the appointed time. Well, they really are twins, I thought to myself. Seeing the two of them together for the first time, they immediately embraced each other. "I'm glad you're doing well," Jennifer said. "Jennifer, I've wanted to see you for so long," Emily said, starting to cry first. Then, almost at the same time, Jennifer also began to cry. They truly are twins, I thought to myself. They entered their own twin world and chatted happily, leaving me feeling like an outsider. But seeing Emily's smile, I was truly glad. Meeting Jennifer had made it possible for me to sit on this bench with such a peaceful heart. Seeing them happy together genuinely filled my heart with joy. Since then, Emily and Jennifer started meeting frequently, and a few months later, we were invited to Jennifer's wedding. Emily cried tears of joy, seeing her twin sister's radiant face on her big day. A year later, When Emily and I had a child, Jennifer often visited and cried with joy. I may not be a twin and can only imagine the depth of their bond, but just watching them fills me with happiness. The period when I suspected Emily of infidelity was not a happy time for either of us. But if it was a hurdle we had to overcome to reach this happiness, then maybe it was a past worth having.